grand calculus of the multiverse, that our sacrifice means infinitely more than their lives.
I can do both!
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and it's official. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is part of the MCU's multiverse saga. Kind of.
What do you mean?
We're going to talk about all the connections to the MCU that we see in this movie, but also we think that it's going to turn out that Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man 2099 could be working for Kang the Conqueror in tandem with the Time Variance Authority from Loki, or maybe even the Council of Kangs that we met in Antman and the Wasp Quantumania. And then a little later we're going to talk about how Kang may have killed the single most important character in all of the Spider-Verse and placed Miguel in charge. And by the way, everybody, before we get rolling here, I want to thank you for watching, supporting our channel, and remind you that we have a merch store where you can get this awesome Doug pointing spider meme shirt. We also have a new podcast. We have TikTok and Instagram where we upload videos that you can't see here on YouTube. Thanks for your support, and back to the Spider-Verse. So we knew going into Across the Spider-Verse that we'd be hearing some MCU references.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 1999-99.
But even I couldn't have predicted that we'd see the sacred timeline from the Loki series in Quantumania. I mean, look at this shot. They are identical.
They're the same picture.
When Miguel shows Miles the multiverse, he starts by showing him everything. This is when we see the sacred timeline consisting of everything in existence. But then we go even deeper and see a more specific multiverse, the Spider-Verse, a multiverse consisting solely of universes that have spider people. Now, when we first saw the sacred timeline in Loki, it looked very different, more like a ring, a circular flow of time that had multiple timelines running parallel to one another, but never converging. Timelines that happened again and again and again the exact same way every single time. This timeline is overseen by He Who Remains, a variant of Kang the Conqueror, a variant that won the Multiversal War, destroyed all his other variants, and brought
Peace, freedom, justice, and security
to the multiverse, but not without a cost. He Who Remains utilized the Time Variance Authority to track down and stop Nexus events. Nexus events are essentially events that aren't supposed to happen. Allowing a Nexus event to go unchecked results in a splintering timeline breaking off from the sacred timeline. And when that happens, the multiverse becomes bigger. More and more universes come into existence, and more universes begin to collide. That's known as an incursion.
An incursion occurs when the boundary between two universes erodes and they collide, destroying one or both entirely.
A few moments later.
And that is how we do it here at ScreenCrush.
Wow, you're like really chipper today.
Man, I feel great. I went out for a few drinks last night, had one too many, and I feel fantastic.
But usually after you have some drinks, you tell me to kill you all day long.
Yeah, dude, well that was before I discovered Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics really works. I actually have a standing subscription every month. This stuff is holy nectar in my household.
Well, what is it?
Well, Z-Biotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic, and it's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. Now, it's this byproduct and not dehydration that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but it's in your gut where you need it to work the most. So here's how it works. You take a Z-Biotic before you start drinking, and of course, drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep, all that stuff. Now, I am not kidding about this. I love Z-Biotics. We use it all the time. I don't drink very often, but when I do, it's good to know that I'm not going to waste away on the sofa the next day. Like for instance, this year, I had my first good New Year's Day since the 90s.
Yeah, like the 1490s.
So I highly recommend you give Z-Biotics a try. Go to zbiotics.com/ScreenCrush or scan the QR code on screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use the code ScreenCrush at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So head to zbiotics.com/ScreenCrush and use the code ScreenCrush at checkout to get 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this video. Now, back to what I was saying. Now, within the sacred timeline, there are constants, story points that are the same in every universe. For example, Lokis are always destined to be the bad guy. That's why when Sylvie, a Loki variant, showed heroic aspirations as a child, she was departing from her set path, her path of becoming a villain. This resulted in her being arrested by the TVA.
On the authority of the Timekeepers, I hereby arrest you for crimes against the sacred timeline.
Now, in Across the Spider-Verse, we hear something very similar. Just like how Lokis are destined to break bad and are not allowed to break from that path, spider people are destined to suffer great tragedies. There's the tragedy of losing Uncle Ben, or in Miles' case, the loss of his Uncle Aaron. These events are known as canon events, events that keep the Spider-Verse connected, events that happen to every spider person every single time because they have to, because they're supposed to. In Across the Spider-Verse, we see a key canon event called the ASM 90, named after the Amazing Spider-Man issue 90. 1990, the issue where Police Captain George Stacy, father of Gwen Stacy, died. That event then continued to happen in every single Spider story. The police captain dies in Spider-Man's arms, an event that, if disrupted, could result in the fabric of reality being torn apart. When a canon event is disrupted, we see the multiverse Spider crew roll in to attempt to stop the universe from collapsing, just like the TVA steps in to reset timelines when a Nexus event occurs.
The TVA has stepped in to fix your mistake and set time back on its predetermined path.
Wait, so if the TVA contain variant timelines and Nexus events, then why don't they show up when a canon event is disrupted?
That is a fantastic question, buddy, and there are several possible explanations, so let's run through them. I think whichever way you slice it, every scenario is going to have Miguel O'Hara working for Kang, whether it be Kang the Conqueror, the Council of Kangs, or maybe even He Who Remains.
But why would a Spider-Man work for a bad guy like Kang? Makes no sense to me personally.
Well, remember, Doug, the best villains are the ones who think that they're doing the right thing. Something Miguel and Kang have in common is their needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few mentality. In the Spider-Verse, we hear Miguel say to Miles,
"You have a choice between saving one person and saving every world."
And in Quantumania, when Janet says to Kang that he'd be killing trillions of people, he responds with,
"I wish that mattered."
Now, Kang is a tyrant who seeks to rule, but his argument is still sound. He has foreseen the fate of the multiverse and the demise of every life within it. Sure, he seeks to rule over all of reality, but he makes a good point that a lot of people dying is theoretically better than everyone dying.
Okay, I guess that's fair.
Now, like Kang, Miguel has seen the destruction of a universe firsthand. When he tampered with the canon, he caused this universe to collapse, similar to how in What If we saw a variant of Doctor Strange destroy an entire universe by disrupting a canon event. That event being the death of Christine Palmer. The death of Christine Palmer, like the death of Uncle Ben and Captain Stacy, is a canon event, or as it's called in What If, an absolute point in time.
Her death is an absolute point in time. Without her death, you would never have defeated Dormammu.
In What If, when we see this universe collapsing, we see this black ink begin to swell. We see this same black ink in Across the Spider-Verse when Spider-Man India's universe begins to collapse. Now, as the black ink bubbles up, we see the multiversal Spider crew begin to contain the swell, attempting to save the universe from destruction. Now, in What If, when the same thing happens to Doctor Strange, the TVA does not show up to stop it. That's because this event took place after Loki. In Loki, we saw the multiverse go into madness.
Hey, that's the name of a movie.
Yes, it is. The multiverse has gone into madness after the death of He Who Remains, and this allowed the universes to branch out rapidly. So I think that's the same situation that we have in Across the Spider-Verse. The events of Across the Spider-Verse are very likely post-Loki. Now granted, it gets a little confusing when you're talking about before and after when it comes to the multiverse and time travel. Every point in time is essentially occurring all at once. So the death of He Who Remains not only affected the future, but it affected the past.
Exactly.
So with Across the Spider-Verse likely being set after Loki, I don't think that Miguel O'Hara is working with He Who Remains, even though they're both running very similar multiversal cleanup crews. In fact, I don't think that Miguel was originally working for any Kang. Remember, before Miguel started his quest of maintaining canon events and stopping the multiverse from collapsing, he already had access to the multiverse. When Miguel is telling Miles about the universe he inadvertently destroyed, we learned that Miguel had a multiversal travel bracelet. He used that bracelet to travel to a universe where a version of him died so that he can continue living as his variant self. In this universe, he had a family and he was happy, but the version of him from this universe was supposed to die. So when Miguel showed up to replace his dead variant, he disrupted the proper flow of time. This resulted in the universe beginning to collapse. So the question becomes, why and how did Miguel have a multiversal travel bracelet? We can assume this was from before he was aware that the universe could collapse, otherwise he wouldn't have been so reckless. So if he wasn't yet on his mission to protect the Spider-Verse and its canon events, then why did he have this multiversal bracelet? Where did he get it? Well, there are a few possibilities. Miguel does live in the year 2099 and he was a scientist. So maybe Miguel was able to crack multiversal travel. Just like before Nathaniel Richards became the infamous Kang, he was a scientist from the 31st century, a scientist who discovered the existence of the multiverse.
A variant of myself lived on Earth in the 31st century. He was a scientist.
It's possible that Miguel had a very similar story to the Kingpin in Across the Spider-Verse, a character who has lost his family and is desperate to have them back. So desperate that they're willing to travel across the universe to find them. And then it's only after Miguel is responsible for the death of trillions that he becomes burdened with guilt and swears to protect the Spider-Verse. Another possibility is that Miguel had a mentor who showed him the ropes of the Spider-Verse, that mentor being Madam Web.
Who?
Now, if you're a comic reader or a fan of the Spider-Man animated series, or have played the classic Spider-Man Shattered Shattered Dimensions game, then you are familiar with the blind, paralyzed psychic mutant with the floaty chair. Side note, we've actually got a Madam Web movie coming out from Sony soon that will reportedly focus on a younger version of the character, teaming up with various spider women to save Peter Parker's mother from a villain who is trying to kill her and prevent Spider-Man from ever being born. In most Spider-Verse stories, you'll find Madam Web right at the center guiding Peter Parker through his multiversal quest. But in Across the Spider-Verse, it's Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man 2099 who is running the show. But what if that wasn't always the case? What if he was once mentored by Madam Web? What if it was her who constructed this visual embodiment of the web of life and destiny? What if Madam Web sewed the webs between the universes together that connect all the spider people, creating her very own observatory, if you will, to monitor every universe that contains a spider person? Perhaps it was her who created Miguel for a multiversal mission, as she's known to do, thereby giving him access to the Spider-Verse. And it was then that Miguel got greedy and pursued his own selfish interests, finding a world where he could have a family.
Person, hold on. If that's the case, then where is this Grandma Spider Lady in Across the Spider-Verse?
Well, buddy, I think Kang might have squashed her like a bug.
I could squash you like a bug right now.
After the events of Loki, we know that the multiverse is unraveling, and that's what's allowing events like No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and What If to occur. That's also why in Quantumania we see a Council of Kangs that's reformed as if they've never left. And in Quantumania we meet Kang the Conqueror, the Kang that we think eventually will become He Who Remains. So what if this Council of Kangs, or Kang the Conqueror, didn't like the idea of someone else having access to the multiverse? We've heard Kang say,
I saw the multiverse, and it was dying.
And we've heard the Council say,
they're beginning to touch the multiverse. They will take everything.
So whether it's Kang the Conqueror or the entire Council, I don't think that either would like the idea of a powerful being like Madam Web being around and threatening their rule. So in typical Kang fashion, they killed her. But they soon realize that they've bitten off more than they can chew, and that this interconnected web of universes is very complex. One wrong move could result in cataclysmic damage to the multiverse. They realize that they need a spider person to do their bidding and maintain the absolute points, or as Miguel calls them, canon events. Now, bear in mind, Miguel is a good guy. He's a Spider-Man. He wouldn't willy-nilly work for a villain like Kang unless he had no choice. Once he's shown the tragic truth of tampering with the multiverse, Miguel realizes that
the grand calculus of the multiverse, their sacrifice means infinitely more than their lives.
And it's also possible that Miguel's tampering with the multiverse is what alerted Kang of the web of life and destiny in the first place. Madam Web could have very well been operating and maintaining the web just fine, but it was Miguel who disrupted a canon event behind her back and caused a whole universe to collapse. And that universe collapsing is what drew the attention of Kang or the Council.
Wait, are you saying that Kang or the Council of Kangs or whatever weren't even aware of universes with spider people in them?
No. Madam Web or Miguel or whoever's overseeing the web of life and destiny don't have full control over a universe just because there's a singular spider person in it. They solely maintain universe-altering events that are part of the spider story. Basically, I'm saying that if a spider person screws up, that's under Miguel's jurisdiction. Sort of like if someone who is part of the Navy commits a crime, Jethro Gibbs kicks down their door.
Did you really just make an NCIS reference?
Sure did, buddy. Anyways, Miguel probably much prefers that he manages the Spider-Verse rather than having a tyrannical outsider like Kang the Conqueror running the show. So Miguel forms his own version of the TVA, a team of multiversal spider people and technology to police the Spider-Verse. And as long as he keeps his web in line, Kang won't interfere. But when situations like the spell in No Way Home or the Collider and Into the Spider-Verse occur, Miguel gets scared of what's to come.
I think you're overthinking this.
And I think that's why I get paid the big bucks, buddy. High five. So let me know what you think. Is Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man 2099 working for Kang? Could we see Kang pop up and be on the Spider-Verse? Or even Miguel pop up in a film like Avengers Secret Wars? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.